Eduardo Lafort, the President and CEO of the Niagara-on-the-Lake Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for joining us today for our Road to Recovery series, brought to you by the 9 chambers that form the Niagara Chamber Partnership: Fort Erie, Grimsby, Lincoln, Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Thorold, Port Colborne, Wainsfleet, Welland, Pelham, and West Lincoln chambers. I'm thrilled to be able to kick off this conversation today. But before we start, I would like to acknowledge that here in Niagara-on-the-Lake, we work and live on the traditional lands of the Mississauga, Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral Nations. We thank them for their ongoing stewardship of this place over millennia. Today's Niagara Road to Recovery brings you a provoking conversation with 4 local business leaders: Mike Konderka from Enviro-Niagara, Hearth and Barbecue; Clayton Letourneau from a Custom Sign Lab; Angela Redekopp from Greaves Jams; and Steve Bonin from 270 Bench Kitchens. Niagara won't be Niagara without the strength and creativity of our local business leaders. We cannot afford not to support them. This conversation will allow us to reflect on the business perspective, on local challenges and opportunities, and look ahead for a brighter future. I want to thank our tech sponsor, Brian LaChapelle from B4 Networks. And I think today, I'm sorry I don't get the name of the person that is sitting for Brian, but thank you very much to B4 Networks. And as always, during this series, we are very fortunate to have John Armstrong from Armstrong Communications, a longtime champion for our local chambers, as the moderator of this series. So without any further delay, I will turn it over to you, John.
Thank you, Eduardo, and I appreciate you introducing our guests, and so that will allow me to dive right into the discussion. As Eduardo said, we're working on the exploring what the road to recovery means for our local businesses, and the importance of supporting our local businesses through their road to recovery. So why don't we start with go a little bit around the table to talk about specifically what your different organizations do. Clayton, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thanks, John. My name's Clayton Letourneau. I'm the owner and creative director at Custom Sign Lab. We're a custom signage fabricator based out of Lincoln, and we service the Niagara region and a little bit into the Hamilton-Burlington area. Our specialty is handcrafted signage. We generally get into the types of projects that other more sort of fast turnaround sign shops don't want to get involved in.
So what kind of signs, like just large storefronts, big hang, like what?
We do a lot of storefront signage. Yeah, quite a bit of storefront signage. We have on-staff graphic designers, so we do branding quite often for restaurants and retail. So we'll take a project right through from the inception of maybe a new brand right through the completion of a whole facade renovation. So we sometimes act like general contractors to redo, facade finishes, and then we cap it off with a beautiful new sign. The other thing that we tend to get into a lot is architectural matching. So if you have a historic building, something that falls under a heritage category, we can match a lot of the surfaces with our 3D carving capabilities. We'll 3D scan your brick, we'll bring it into our rendering software, and we'll actually make it so that we can match a sign to your brick that might be 200 years old.
Nice. So what's one of your favorite projects that you worked on the last little while?
One of our favorite projects that I've worked on in the last little while, a couple of years ago, we actually got a chance to do a really fun project in Niagara Falls, right down on Clifton Hill, and that's what my background was in. I sort of cut my teeth in the sign industry in the amusements sector. So being able to come back around to that and do some work for Adventureland and the arcade that's on the east side of Clifton Hill, and along with the large marketplace that's at the bottom of Falls View and Clifton Hill Avenue. We did some carnival style signage. It was quite a big undertaking, but we took on the project management and the development of a lot of the signage there. That was a fun one to work on because it was so varied in what we were able to do, and the scope of it was larger than any project that we had tackled to date. And a more local project is we were able to just do the facade renovation for Mrs. Greenway in Grimsby. They're a great client who has multiple locations, and we've been contracted to do their signage from day one. So when they moved during the second lockdown, they decided to move into a larger space. They called us up and said, "Hey, we need a fresh sign." So that was a nice project to do amidst all of the lockdown fever.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were so many signs on Clifton Hill.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm a second generation sign maker, and so I learned that was the bulk of what I sort of grew up learning to do outside of high school and university. I did a lot of the signs. There's a huge variation. They all have a general sort of kitsch style to them, but there's a huge variation in the construction of a lot of them. So I learned how to do a lot of things, and it was fun to work with my father too.
Yeah, great project. I mean, Clifton Hill would definitely be that would definitely be the big leads in terms of being able to have some fun with some signage. Just before we move on, give me one example of a heritage sign that you did, because I'm kind of interested by that.
Heritage sign, we did a great project for a business called Dentistry on Main in Hagersville. It's a chain of locally owned dentist offices. They had a building which was about mid to late 1800s that had a stone brick foundation on it, and we wanted to match up the pillars and the support pillars on that to be really in keeping with the style of the brick of the foundation. So we 3D scanned it, we rendered it, and we reproduced it, and you can hardly tell the difference.
Nice, really interesting. So Angela, why don't you tell us what Greaves Jam does? What do you think?
Well, we've been around since 1927. I've been around for about a third of that, and I'm one of the co-owners. And what do? We make jams, jellies, marmalades, condiments, a new line of pepper and wine jellies now. And so I'm sitting in the factory right now, but we also have our retail store on obviously on Queen Street in Niagara on the Lake, and it's been there since its inception, so since 1927. And our factory here in Virgil is over 32 years old. So yeah, that's we pride ourselves on high quality products, and we ship them all over Canada, but primarily Ontario, to wholesalers, distributors, hotels, inns, restaurants, that sort of thing.
What's your mix? How much of your business is goes out of your store versus in grocery versus in restaurant, if that's not proprietary?
So we used to say it was about 50%, give or take, would go out of the store. I would say through COVID, that completely changed, and with the store being closed for a good chunk of the time, and even though we were allowed to be open, it didn't warrant being open most of the time because the street was quiet. But we do probably about 60% wholesale now, 40% out of the store, and but we also sell a lot of Canadian specialty foods out of the store as well that complement our products. We do a lot of gifts, we do a lot of corporate, so that happens out of our factory too. So we're very diversified. We have a wide range. We also do a large online. Again, that's been growing, and we although we don't put a lot of effort into that part of the business, you can't ignore it. You have to continue to evolve it and build it, and so I'm actually in the middle of not in the middle of it, at the end of the project, launching a brand new website. So that's kind of exciting for e-commerce.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, though, it sounds like similar to the wine industry, your storefront is an important distribution point, or has. I think it helps.
Yeah, it helps in the marketing as well. A lot of businesses come our way because they've seen our product in our shop, but they also see it in other wholesale places as well, a lot of retailers, and and small shops that and they come because of that. But yeah, big part. I think it's our flagship store. It's our only store, but we also take pride in it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just before we move on, in your mix between specialty grocery and other accommodations like hotels and that kind of thing, what's your mix there? Or
I would say hotels
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Our hotel business is pretty small in terms of the scope of the entire business. We were selling into Four Seasons, for example, North America wide for a few years. And they sort of chipped away at that and started going more and more local, which totally makes sense. So we retained the Canadian part of that business, but it's really not a focus of ours. It's not very profitable. So it's interesting, even again, through COVID, how you learn to look at the profitability of certain product lines and what works and what doesn't. And that's, I think, one of the biggest messages that we got out of the year was is what to focus on, where to concentrate your efforts, and maximize that, and focus on the grocery, the bread and butter items, if you will. No pun intended.
and Mike, as it relates to Enviro-Niagara Hearth and Barbecue, tell us about your business.
So yeah, my name is Mike Konderka. I'm the owner of the Enviro-Niagara Group. We have two facets of business. We do heating and air conditioning, plus we've also ventured into the Hearth and Barbecue game. So Hearth and Barbecue came after heating and air conditioning. We have two storefronts. One's in Welland on Highway 20. One's in Port Colborne on Kalali Street. I can explain a little more on the trials and tribulations of opening a new retail store during COVID. We got about 5 hours of time. But
you opened during COVID.
Yeah, well, we signed a lease just prior to COVID, and when COVID hit, we were ready to open the doors. So we recently just held our grand opening 3 weeks ago. So the numbers were out of being able to be open 600 days, I think the doors were open for about 250. So it was a little bit of a struggle, especially sitting on a bunch of barbecue inventory and such. However, I mean, we primarily do residential and commercial heating and air conditioning.
Right.
It's a large part of the business. Barbecue dictates, generally 20% of my business. Unfortunately, during COVID, our barbecue numbers went up as our HVAC numbers went down, because people generally didn't want us in their home servicing their equipment if it wasn't an absolute necessary service call. We did see that decrease. We did see that decrease in business.
All right. So HVAC went down during COVID, but barbecue went up. Where you said the barbecue is about 20% of your business?
Yeah, barbecue we generally try to keep it around 20%. Yes. It went up this year, obviously, because HVAC went down, but even barbecue had its own struggles. I mean, being in retail, this was a whole new animal for us. We've been doing it since 2017, but getting product, the shipping overseas stuff was just a disaster. And it continues to be a disaster. And not alone just barbecue. There still is lots of there's such a struggle in the HVAC industry with people getting gas valves, people getting inducer motors. It's a constant struggle.
So you were actually doing barbecue retail before you had storefront?
No, when we opened up barbecue retail in 2017. We had it for a while. Port Colborne, we just opened this year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
You also talked about your name also has the word hearth in it. Does that mean that you also?
Yeah, we do fireplaces. We have a fireplace showroom on Highway 20. Fireplaces are coming along. We do both gas and electric.
No wood though.
Unfortunately, the wet certification wasn't part of the program. Maybe in a year or two, but we're seeing a major increase in natural gas and electric fireplaces over wood.
Right. And I imagine some of the climate change restrictions that are coming forward are making things even tougher.
That, and the fact that insurance is getting very, very, very expensive to have wood burning. That's one of the major factors. We've had it quoted out in our own house to put wood in, and it makes it unaffordable at some point in time. You know?
Wow, interesting. And Stephen, tell us about 270 Bench Kitchen.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we're a gourmet sandwich shop located in Grimsby at the corner of Bartlett and Main. Our focus would be on scratch cooking, healthy cooking, delicious, freshly made sandwiches done on some of the best sourdough bread you'll find. We've been open since 2013. Yeah, we focus on a lunchtime crowd. We do outstanding business. And we've actually transitioned into an online store. And that's really helped our business since COVID. We used to be, it's a super small, like 800 square foot, located in a strip mall. And we would be doing like crazy numbers with this tiny little area, and customers would cram in waiting for sandwiches. And having the online store has really accelerated the customer getting in and out. We've been able to turn over a lot more product, a lot more food in a faster, easier time, both for the customer and for us.
So how much pre-COVID, how much of your business was anchored around either businesses ordering or workplaces, people coming from workplaces to have a sandwich? They're great sandwiches, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I live in Beacon.
Yeah. You mean like catering? Like,
yeah, catering, or even just workers coming in sort of on their lunch break, or people who might all of a sudden find themselves working from home and therefore no longer being convenient to go out and have a sandwich for lunch.
So like pre-COVID, you're talking.
Yeah, pre-COVID,
yeah. Yeah, it's a lunch. You can see the chart of sales. It's from 11 till 2 o'clock. We're crushed, and then the catering kind of is sprinkled in throughout there. The catering is actually starting to pick up quite a bit now. I think people are getting back into business. We've done excellent business with the wineries around too. This time of the year, they're all doing harvest. So we get a lot of, our bag lunches are super convenient and super COVID friendly. It's like what you wanted, John, you wanted a turkey sandwich with the quinoa salad and a brownie, and the bag says, John, away you go. And very little contact. You have your own meal right there, individualized and delicious and easy. So catering's moving back to levels where we used to be.
How much of that business did you lose through COVID?
I mean, right off the go, a ton. Yeah. Catering would typically be around 14 to 16% of our overall revenue, and I think we were doing we had a whole couple months with 0, and so it just slowly moved its way up 2%, 7%, 10%. Now we're in and around where I feel we should be.
Do you foresee sort of additional opportunities for that to grow? Do you get a sense of new momentum? I mean, we have as we're kind of coming out of COVID, you've got that sense of momentum. You've got sort of that sort of a general feeling of additional euphoria as people are kind of slowly but surely breaking free and going out to places pensively and then having a great time. And so do you feel that kind of opportunity to grow that side of the business?
Yeah, the catering as well. I think because we've always offered, you could have platter sandwiches, platters and salads, and that was a bit more popular. But with the advent of the social distancing, we've had almost exclusively bag lunches, and it's so much easier. A little bit more legwork up front just to organize what everybody wants, but the distribution and the end product is so much easier. So people just learning that this is an option that we offer. I just see more people seeing it and exploring it and coming back to it. So I do see it just continuing to increase in that specific type of catering.
Certainly from the winery perspective, like I say, I live in Beamsville, so I'm around a whole lot of wineries, and the people like to eat with wine, and so from the tasting standpoint, not everybody has kitchens, so I guess there's probably a fair bit of opportunity for you as everybody provides offerings besides just charcuterie boards. Pardon me for saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to get back to something that Angela said, which was that COVID makes you really take a look at your profitability and what lines are profitable, and how you adjusted through COVID. Angela, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did and how you made and adjustments that you made in order to still be here with us today.
Right. Well, I think right from the get-go, I mean, everybody was reeling through what this all meant, and we had a 2-week downtime where nothing really was happening. And beyond that, we jumped back into production right after a 2-week break with our staff. Even though our store was closed, our factory rebounded, and some came back, some did not. So it was a real big challenge, big challenges with labor and rehiring throughout 2020 and getting back into some sort of normal production. But we did have to focus on the top 10 flavors, if you will, just to get the inventory back on track as we started to see grocery ordering significant volumes that just kept ramping up week after week after week. We started to see the push, and so we weren't very diversified anymore. What was our business in the past? So that was gone. Now we were really focused on the big distribution companies that were coming to us and asking for larger volumes, and so that was our focus. And we decided to really focus on that, obviously, because that's where the demand was. And then we started to see supply chain issues, and that became our next challenge. And so getting product, glass particularly, was the lead times became a huge problem. Imagine a business that relies solely on glass. If you don't have glass, you cannot pack. And so we realized that, okay, if we don't get the glass we need when we need it, we either have to shut down, we have to perhaps make it into a different product, a different size. So we evaluated a lot of things, and we jumped over that hurdle and moved on to new hurdles. So it just kept evolving and changing through 2020, and new products. We didn't introduce any new products. We did introduce a new line in 2019, literally just before Christmas of 19, our wine jelly lines and red pepper lines. And so we didn't pursue that very much. We just sort of let that sit and slide. But I continued to produce it a little bit, and now it's taken on a whole new meaning. So we're really fortunate to see businesses really get excited about this new line of product, and wineries especially. So great.
Yeah, couple of quick questions. First off, how did you overcome your glass challenge? What did you do? Did you just find a supplier that could guarantee you supply?
We went back to a supplier we had no desire to work with. Sort of had to tuck our tail between our legs and try that. And they came to the table and worked with us. And that was fabulous. And now our main supplier has been able to, work with longer lead times with us, and which is fine. And now we know what we're up against. So we have to order significantly larger volumes, and with 2-3 month lead times, basically. Yeah.
Right, but they're demanding that you order larger volumes.
Sorry, no, not larger volumes. I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
I think what we're trying to do is just anticipate ahead of time. So, our 3 month, but we don't want to get caught. So we would rather have larger inventory in our, in our own factory, so that we can juggle any future new challenge that might arise.
Right. So you're looking at So you're looking at creating inventory to overcome.
I think so. Yeah, but inventory is holding any sort of large inventory in our factory has not been the case. It's just been going out the door as quickly as we can produce it. So it's just been a constant, movement. We work here year round. We produce fresh fruit products throughout the season, and that always puts a big challenge every year for our company at the best of times. So, and then you can't produce regular product. So, but we work through Monday through Friday year round. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So you also talked about how the large distributors started knocking on your door asking for more and more product, and how was that kind of a new? Well, it sounds like it was a new circumstance, but how did you deal with the large distribution companies demanding more and more
Well,
product? I guess it
the
sounds like
store
you.
wasn't moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the store wasn't moving any product. So that kind of helped obviously soften the challenge. The hotel industry was flat. There was nothing moving there. So really, but online sales ramped up significantly. So I think we were excited about the fact that, you know, we could move larger volumes it's a simpler business model, if you will. Compared to retail or online, it's a lot of hands-on.
Yeah.
But moving product just by pallet load is a simpler methodology. So we work there very well. We've done that forever. So that wasn't too hard. And these were existing businesses, existing distributors, and they're now moving more and more product into the grocery chain, like Metro and Sobeys and Loblaws and that sort of thing. And the Toronto market is very strong, as is the Ottawa markets, Hamilton, and so
you anticipate that business? You anticipate that business staying, or do you see that kind of flattening out as more and more people start spending their money? And, going.
Yeah, good question, John. Yes, good question, John. I think what I found, what was happening. It was a very interesting time because we were getting phone calls, cold calls from people that wanted our product line because it was local and Canadian. So that's another area that we just couldn't believe how many calls were coming in. They either had their own supply chain issues, their own supply issues, their own products that weren't coming in from wherever they were buying, importing. So they decided to come, and look for a jam company that was local. So we did generate some really interesting business. A lot of people just said, "That's it. I'm staying local, buying from you guys. I'm not going afield." So that was nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, Clayton, you work in a business that is pretty dependent upon retailers. A lot of retailers were shut down. What kind of an impact did COVID have on your business, and how did you adapt, as I always said to Angela, in a way that lets you still be here with us today?
So initially, what we tried to do was take a look at what was happening in the general business market and react to that. The first thing that we did is we started bringing in plastic by the skid load as we could get it, because we knew that there was going to be a shortage of it. And we actually moved into making some PPE and social distancing related products. That really kept us afloat through the initial stages of the pandemic in 2020. We were doing a lot of safe social distancing floor.
Oh, the stickers on the floor. Stickers on the, of course, yeah.
Thousands and thousands of those left our studio, and then also protective shields. So like the countertop, we were doing custom and standard, desktop countertop acrylic shields for as essential retail could be open.
Right.
People were needing it to create some barriers before, as we were just sort of getting into the whole mandatory mask program, and even through the bulk of 2020. So there was about 7 months where that was about 90% of the business that we were doing.
How lucrative was that? I used to crack jokes going into the liquor store in various places about, boy, I wish I was in the acrylic business.
It kept us afloat and kept the business comfortable. The issue was, and this was a joke that was made by one of our distributors, because all you could do was make a joke about it, that they weren't, that plastic was at market price, just like fish. And so it was literally changing by the day, because their so any contracts that had existed with those materials the manufacturers were tearing them up and saying it's market price now, because they were going to the highest bidder and taking a little bit of advantage. When it started to move down the chain, every level below the manufacturer was trying to make sure that they could get it out in the community as reasonably priced as possible. So what we were doing is we were taking a look at what our costs were. We were taking, taking a look at what it was going to do, what we needed to do to keep the business in a comfortable and still operational position. And we were pricing accordingly because we wanted to make sure that we were servicing our existing client base as best as we could to keep them up and running, to get their doors back open. And that was something that was really important to us because we were trying to look at the long-term effects. If we have 50% of the businesses that we work with close, that's 50% of businesses we need to infill, on our books to make sure that we're still in business. So we were just trying to sort of come to aid as much as we could. And as that was, we were able to help quite a bit. It was a little bit trying at times, trying to procure all the different materials. We were, just like Angela, dealing with suppliers that we had kissed goodbye a long time ago. But they were the ones, some of those suppliers were the ones that were coming through the best because they maybe saw some issues in, how they were doing business, and they were trying to, re-earn industry trust. So we have a couple of suppliers that we deal a lot more with now than we did previously. And we're lucky to have distribution back to a point that is more manageable. There's a lot more planning that comes into purchasing sign making materials now than there was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, pretty much anything you needed was on our floor in 3 days. So we never held a lot of back inventory. We're at the point now where we're holding about triple inventory on anything that we need, in anticipation of potential shortages, just to make sure that we can service our clientele. But luckily enough, by the end of 2020, as we came through the sort of initial shock of the pandemic, we were noticing that a lot of the work that we were transitioning back to was rebranding and businesses really wanting to cement themselves in the community. We were luckily enough to expand our team during during 2020, bring on a graphic designer in addition to myself to be able to service those new accounts, and our team's expanded again. So we're doing a lot of, just like I said before, a lot of rebranding and a lot of new facade work. Businesses that did make it through each of the lockdowns, each of the shutdowns, really want to cement themselves in the community, in addition to some other new businesses.
Yeah. So when you said that you wanted to help the businesses that you had relationships with, because I kind of think of your business, maybe I'm wrong about this, as not being sort of regular. You do a sign for a company, and then that kind of job is over. It's project based, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you went back into the customer base where that you built signs for, and made the new offering of helping them with some of their with their PPE, and so you were able to tap into your existing client base to expand your offerings. Is that right?
That's correct, John. Yeah, we do have a wide range in the cycle on signage. I mean, we offer large format and small format printing, so your business cards, your postcards, posters, and whatnot. So our touch points aren't quite as far removed as, say, a national sign company that would be, we're going to redo all the Rexall signs once every 10 years, and then that's our only touch point. We have generally, most of our clients, we have touch points with at least once a year. But again, like, we did go through the list and just and send out the e-blast, and who needs it, and we reached into our Rolodex, so to speak, to find anybody that we could help, and we did focus on the local first, the closer to Beamsville, Grimsby, Vineland, Jordan, like all of the tight municipalities, the businesses that we were driving home past every day. We were making sure to pay attention and be proactive, as we saw the different provincial mandates come through. Okay, this is a new stage. This business is going to be we would make a list of businesses that we wanted to reach out to and ask them about their needs, because there were so many other things that these business owners were worried about. What was happening with their staff, if they could get staff back in, could they keep product on on their shelves. But the last thing that they needed to worry about was what are the regulations according to social distancing barriers and signage and whatnot. So we had all that information ready for them. We were able to provide them with the necessary information to just make a quick decision so they could get reopened and back to normal.
Yeah, that's really fantastic, because you'd think that there'd be a lot of retailers that, I mean, in terms of figuring out the PPE and the acrylic barriers, it's just like, what do I do? I mean, people wouldn't have any idea, and to have sign companies like a sign company like yours, where you've got an existing relationship, contacting and say, hey, would we like to do this? Be like, yes, please, yes, please, thank you. Just before I move over to Mike and Stephen, Angela, Clayton was talking about going back to some suppliers that they'd kiss goodbye. You talked about going back to a supplier that you'd kiss goodbye. He indicated that they had changed as opposed to that helped to create that relationship. You said you had to go back with your tail between your legs. Had the supplier that you went back to, were they a little more humble as well?
Yep, it was good all the way through, and they came to the table and they got us product as quickly as they promised. Everything held to the standard that we expected. And they supplied us for a number of months. So what do we go back? Well, it's great to know that they're available. So yeah, we'll definitely keep them on our list now.
Nice, that's fantastic. So Mike, heard a couple of times with both Angela and Clayton that they are managing their inventories differently, whether it's input materials or whether it's finished product. Have you made any adjustments to your inventory in order to deal with some of the challenges you see in the supply chain? Obviously, when it comes to HVAC, things start to get very expensive. Not to mention the amount of space required for inventory. What are your?
Yeah, we were kind of forced to buy in bulk because things were becoming so non-existent. There was a shortage in copper. There's a shortage in sheet metal for air conditioners, furnace cabinets, all that type of stuff. So when it came to the HVAC side, we ended up buying, where we are on Highway 20, we rented a sea container. So we started buying in larger bulk to have it in there. Not only was the supplier, they extended terms for us to help us out. They're grateful that we were just, hey, listen, take it all in bulk, and then we don't have to deal with you for, we'll deal with you every couple months instead of dealing with every couple of weeks kind of scenario. Especially because there's a lot of shortages out there, especially when it came to, we were buying bulk copper for air conditioning in the summer in skids, whereby we buy it in a couple boxes on a regular weekly basis. We found it that, and you're talking tens of thousands of dollars in copper. Where we used to buy it in minimal hundreds, thousands, if 1,000. You know what I mean? Like we had to buy it in such big bulk. When it comes to barbecue was a very big, more of a headache. Shipping chains. I'm still waiting for one of my orders that was supposed to be here in August. It's scheduled to be here March of 2022. So like a lot of the product is so pushed far back that, with that being said, they're talking about going back to different suppliers and such. We actually just eliminated brands. We just found that by us focusing on our most popular brands is creating such a better revenue stream than having so much extra quantity. Having 20 brands versus 10 brands. 10 brands is much better because you can rely on them, you create better partnerships, and you're not, you don't have to diversify that much.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that decision. That must have been. At what point did you kind of start to feel the supply chain when all of a sudden you're obviously kind of doing, obviously it wasn't business as usual, but there was lots of inventory, prices were cheap, people didn't want people in their houses. There was that period through waves 1 and 2 when things were plentiful. Then I guess as those inventories started to deplete and the supply chain issues started to kick in, tell us a little bit about that decision point, because that must have been challenging for you to come to terms with that, and then B, put the wheels in motion to increase your inventories, to work on your terms, to get the sea container? Tell us a little bit about that decision.
Well, believe it or not, the decision was pretty easy. When we focused on, if you want to just focus on barbecue for a second, I mean, those decisions were very easy. The companies that we were dealing with pretty much told the little guy to step aside. We're going to fulfill big box. At that particular moment in time, you know, sitting with my managers and all that, it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to stick with the people that are supporting us to this time, and we're going to go from there. And it's funny because it's all coming back on a couple of suppliers that we dealt with that, you know, there were no emails, there were no phone calls, there was, you know, your order sitting in limbo, and all of a sudden we get drop shipped, you know, without any communication. It just seems like everything broke down with some of these larger companies that we dealt with that primarily focused on big box. Once big box was fulfilled, then we're going to fulfill the little guy. Well, we're at the end of the selling season, and you drop X amount of dollars on my back door without any notice, and expect, you know, payment in 30 days. In, you know, nobody's buying barbecue in the rain or the snow. I mean, it slows down, and they completely forgot about the little guy. You know, it was discouraging. So we made the decisions that, hey, guess what? I mean, it's time to focus on everybody that supported us during this time. This is where we need to be.
Right. And Stephen, you're in the fresh food business, so establishing large inventories of bread is probably not such a good idea. So how have you found in the fresh food business? Have you found any kind of supply chain issues? Even though I know probably everything is supplied locally, but if people are shopping more at home, that may put some additional pressures through grocery. What have you found?
You just kind of fuzzed out a little bit. I missed most of your question. I'm sorry.
The question is you're in the fresh food business, establishing larger inventories of your input materials can't be done. Have you experienced any supply chain issues in the fresh food business?
Not anymore than yeah, I can hear you a little better now. Thanks. Not any more than usual. The biggest difference in the fresh food is simply the price. Everything is just getting more and more expensive. I'm sure you've seen there's a lot of stuff going around on social media, like chicken. I don't sell them, but chicken wings jump 3,000%, and I had a lettuce pre-COVID cost this. So those would be the biggest challenges, is just keeping an eye on what's costing what, and making sure the quality is there, because what you get with the fresh food sometimes is they're buying it, they're not making heaps of money on it, the distributor. So sometimes they need to push their inventory because they're sitting on expensive inventory. So sometimes you just keep your eye. And luckily, I have great suppliers. I have great vendors. I don't run into that issue, but some of my colleagues that you just got to watch. You get a case of lettuce come in and it's 90% garbage, but I mean, the vendor's doing the best they can as well.
Right. So you're experiencing price pressures from your side. Are you in the process of, have you passed those on to your customers?
As of yet, no. I had raised prices. There's a lot, like what Angela said, I agreed with. When COVID hit, we took a look at where we were losing money. We were looking at the profitability of each of our menu items, and some of them had to go. Some of the ones I really liked and customers really liked, and people, it ruffled some feathers, but you can't stay in business to have like a 90% food cost. You need to sort that out. So I'm just going to continue to monitor prices. I don't want to just keep raising prices every month just because things are going up. You wait and see. Things will move, and you just hope it levels out, and then we can make a better decision then.
So that's interesting that you drop some menu items just because of the profitability, as Angela was talking about. So do you see those items coming back as we move out of COVID, or do you see that you're going to be paying more attention to the profitability of each of the individual items going forward?
the good thing, we run features every day. So every day, 5 days of the week, we run a sandwich feature. So if there was an item that somebody liked, I can run it and I can bring it in and I'll eat that food cost for that day. And it's not the worst. Certain items, like we had 4 different types of salads on the go at one time. And that, with the labor shortage, there isn't enough time, there's enough space to continue to run that many SKUs. So some of the stuff, it finds its way back in the menu. It's just not there all the time.
Yeah. And let's move over to labor. Angela, have you experienced labor shortages? What's been your through the various phases of COVID, and where are you at right now?
We're in pretty good shape. I'm trying to just hire a part-time office girl, for example, and I had hired 2, and both of them didn't show up. So that's been a really interesting time. I've never in my many years of hiring people have had that type of disrespect. So I was quite surprised. But apart from that, we've had some great new hires and we've been really excited about our production staff. So that's been great. And I have an awesome office administrator. So we run a great ship here right now. I'm still looking though to hire an office part-timer.
How many staff do you have in your production facility?
I would say we can run our production on 5. That's just making jam, plus office and management. But so right now, I think we're at 5.5, 6. We have 6 people, give or take. And that is a good number. And then when we get into some seasonal products, like for example, come January, we'll be moving into marmalade season. And then we get all the fresh Seville and grapefruits, oranges, lemons, all that sort of thing. And when that comes in, we need to have more hands at the table, because we do a lot of handwork as well. So we're still quite hands-on and manual in some ways, even though we have a full manufacturing production line.
So you must. Sorry, now I'm just being curious. So you work in the also in the fresh food business.
Mm-hmm.
So you say you run a 12-month-a-year production facility. So obviously you'd be following oh, we're doing strawberry jams. Oh, we're doing peaches. Oh, we're doing so that you basically follow the various seasons. Or do you have any kind of do you have any downtime, or do you just move into citrus when you into the winter?
Yeah, well, citrus is the least expensive time is winter, when it's plentiful, when there's a good supply. So you buy it when it's there. So that's why we buy it in January, February. Maybe, yeah, that's pretty much the timeline. And then in the summer, I guess it starts around mid to end of July. We start moving into relish season, and then all the fresh tender fruits start coming in, and we move into all of the various fruits of apples, crab apples, grapes, plums, and yeah, and we buy frozen fruit, lots of berries. They come in for us frozen, so we can make them at any time of the year. So we've got some flexibility, and we can juggle back and forth, and we constantly do, based on what's available, where our demand is, what we need to move to. So it's a constantly moving target all the time, but we do a good job.
So this is a stupid question. You're probably going to answer me no, but so is it could it kind of be like wine when you have the new vintage of strawberry jam comes out because it's all fresh strawberries? Do you announce like that? No.
Yes, but for us, fresh packed means fresh packed. We just made it, and we make strawberry jam every month. Sometimes even twice a month, because it's our most popular seller. It's never changed. It's always the most popular seller in all sizes. It will never change. And so yes, we get a variety of different strawberries in. They do come in frozen, and that's the only way we could complete demand. We would never be profitable if we had to work from a fresh strawberry, unfortunately.
Right. Okay, I get it. So Mike, what about labor on your side of things? You must have had you must have had a fair bit of flux as you're trying to work out your as you're trying to work
Labor
out?
is our arch nemesis right now. I mean, it is so difficult. Remember reading an article that came out from the BDC stating that the age groups of 60 to 65, the people that were thinking about retirement are now taking, the majority of them are leaving because they're just taking early retirement. They've been at home for a couple of years, so why do we go back for that extra year? But in HVAC, we have headhunters out there. All the old guys, all the old boys and girls club that are in heating and air conditioning are retiring. You're seeing an influx of younger kids coming out of gas school without experience. So to groom them takes years. This isn't a weekly project, a monthly project. It takes years to build and develop that type of thing. And I can also see it too from the food side of you. During COVID, my wife and I, we also bought a pizzeria, and you think, like it'd be okay to, but trying to find laborers to bake, to front of the house, to back of the house, and all that, it's almost to the point where, yes, you can use the word discouraging to find, like Angela having 2 people. We've had interviews booked, people don't show up, there's no phone call, there's no, I just don't, it is in a way discouraging. Now the employees I have are wonderful, they're awesome, they're stuck by our side right through everything. They're troopers, especially during COVID. My HVAC techs having to go into homes, having to wear a mask every day, having to do all that kind of stuff. I mean, that takes a big toll, and we're greatly thankful for it. But on the vice versa, as things are getting extremely busier and you can't find the proper staff, I mean, there are people that are willing to work, but are they the right ones? I mean, you got to make the right decision in my industry, because we deal with gas, we deal with fire, we deal with all that kind of stuff. But it takes that right kind of person with experience that we need to hire. So yeah, well, 100%, that is our biggest hurdle is staffing.
And certain, do you see the prospect of government programs related to climate change, reducing carbon impact? A lot of that has to do with continuing to move into higher efficiency furnaces and on the HVAC side, probably better air conditioners. Do you see those kinds of government programs on both the residential and potentially, I mean, if the current federal government comes through in terms of looking at large commercial as well, do you see those prospects as providing you with more opportunities for growth, but then also there isn't the labor to kind of meet the demand that is supposed to be created?
There is a ton of work that can be done around here in the Niagara region. Prior to COVID, I used to own a custom metal fabrication company too. We did a ton of new home construction. Unfortunately, we got out of that because A, labor shortage, B, having, it just seems that the price didn't dictate what we had to do. So, as well as you can pad your books with a couple of million and you're not making a percentage on it, it's really not worth it. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, but with all the new home construction down here, some people have benefited from it. But again, it goes back to finding labor. I mean, you're only as strong as your workforce. If your workforce makes mistakes because they're rookies and you don't have enough time to train them, I mean, you're going back. Going back costs you 2 times the amount of money. It adds up. It adds up in the end. So yeah, again, like labor for even with the rebates that the government are offering now, there are some really good rebates out there. We offer them. Our clients take them, but we schedule according to what we can accommodate. We're not gonna, force our guys to do 2 installs in a day. Our clients work with us, especially if we're down a truck or something like that. We had one person hit with COVID, so that took a truck off the road for 2 weeks, and we couldn't replace them. We just can't replace anybody on a dime in this industry. So we've worked through it.
So you're finding that you can't because of labor as well as supply chain issues, I guess you actually can't meet the demand that's out there currently for your product. Those are That's what people
If
say.
we
Those are
wanted
good
to, if I wanted
problems
to
to
grow,
have, although they're still problems. Go ahead.
oh, it's a great problem to have. I mean, if we wanted to grow, we could. There are opportunities, but with those opportunities come, come a lot of increases. You're buying new trucks, you're buying new tools, you're training new people. You're trying, first and foremost, you got to hire the people to put in the truck. And if my operation manager doesn't see fit that the people that we are interviewing and he doesn't have the confidence in their skills, we're not going to send anybody out there. I mean, our main premise is 110% satisfaction, and we live by that day in and day out.
Yeah. So Clayton, do you have any labor problems through COVID or probably looking into the future?
So yes and no. We're a pretty small team. We've been in business 10 years, and we've just moved into a larger facility for the last 3 years. So we were on track to make a couple hires in 2020, specifically graphic designer. That got pushed about 6 months later than our initial inclination. We were still able to hire a designer to round out the team a little bit in 2020, and then throughout this year we've have been experiencing some labor shortages. The issue is experience in this particular market, right? We're looking for somebody. What we specifically need was somebody that had light fabrication experience. It's more tangible skills, but nothing that's a specific trade. I mean, sign making once upon a time was a journeyman's trade in the 60s and 70s, and they slowly moved out of the trades colleges as the sign business went more digital and less hand built. So we've actually just been lucky enough to find somebody who is going to come on board, start later this week, actually, working in our shop to fabricate signs. But I mean, we need a variety of skills, from working with hand tools to operating a CNC router table, and then being comfortable with processing and finishing the components that come off of the machines to be assembled into the actual signage. We're noticing that it's getting a little bit better to find people, but we tried to hire back in March, and we had a posting up for 6 weeks and we got 2 applicants. And we were working with the Employment Help Center, who is fantastic, and even does all the initial screenings, and they just said the applications just weren't coming in. What we're noticing is, even with talking a lot of the businesses that we work with, is that the labor force is completely different. It's difficult to get people interested in coming back to work in some cases, and finding the people that even have the skill sets that you need as a building block for what that position can grow into. So we are lucky enough that we found somebody that has a trades background and has all the necessary skills that we can grow their position into something where they are a skilled sign maker. But it will be a process. The next after that is looking for an administrator so that we can keep up with the front of the house operations. So our team is growing, and we're confident that we'll find the right people. We're also making sure that we're patient, like Mike said, to grow the team, in such a way that you're finding the right people, and that you're not building out a team that's not going to uphold your values for quality. We stand by our work day in and day out, and we want to make sure that every next person that joins our team is the right person to join our team.
It sounds like fun. It sounds like fun, creative work, if you don't mind me saying. But
it's fun. It's creative. It's different almost every day. I love it. I love coming into work in the morning, and everybody here loves coming into work in the morning, which is really nice. But it's kind of hard to sell people on a feeling in a job description. So.
Yeah, that's all the time that we have for today. This has been a tremendously interesting discussion. I'd like to thank Mike Konderka from Enviro-Niagara Hearth and Barbecue. Thank you, Mike. And Clayton Letourneau from Custom Sign Lab. Thank you, Clayton. Angela Redekopp from Greaves Jams. Thank you very much, Angela. And Stephen Bonin from 270 Bench Kitchen. It's been a tremendously interesting conversation. I've learned a lot. I love learning during these discussions. So I'd like to thank the Niagara Chamber Partnership for allowing me to participate in the Road to Recovery series. Next week, our conversation will focus on the local labor market. So it's that will be good. Our guests will include Vivian Kinnaird from the Workforce Planning Board, Blake Landry from Niagara Region Economic Development. He's a great statistician. And Paul Robertson from the Employment Help Center. I'd like to thank everybody for participating, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.